Now is Congressman Greg Steube. Okay, Congressman, it's good to see you. We spoke with you last night while you were locked in your office in Capitol Hill. Your reaction to today's events, are you confident Washington is now safe and secure?
Well, it was this morning. Some of the buildings were still locked down, unusually locked down than they typically are. It was much quieter. They still had blocks cordoned off with police vehicles. So it was much quieter. You didn't see a lot of people walking around. When I was in the airport today to come back to the district, you saw a lot of people that took part in the rallies at the airport. So I think most of the people that were there for the rally have dispersed back to whatever states that they came from. So much different place this morning than it was yesterday.
Yeah, the question is, how is this allowed to happen? How did authorities not know when hotels were rejecting people? It makes people think, what else are we not prepared for? We've got Tim Ryan, chair of the panel that oversees the Capitol Police, said what transpired was a failure of Capitol Hill because they said last week they had a comprehensive plan to keep Congress safe. Now, we don't want to second guess the cops, but people are saying, well, how did they get so overwhelmed? And why did they let people go? And why did they let them go in other riots?
Yeah, there was videos of officers just basically getting to the point where they, I guess, felt overwhelmed and they just let people through doors. The barricades got pushed over very easily. That's because there wasn't officers up on the barricades. The D.C. mayor said that she had activated the National Guard 2 days before. So why in the world wasn't the National Guard there when they knew when everybody was going to arrive? They knew when all the crowds were going to be there. So just as a precaution, if you would have had more manpower on those barricades, they wouldn't have been able to be pushed over, and the crowd wouldn't have gotten to the point where they were right outside the Capitol doors. And at that point, there's too many entry and exit points, too many windows for all the Capitol Police to try to manage. And then once you start having breaches in different places, the Capitol is a multi-floor place with basements and different tunnels and different places that people can go. It becomes very difficult to secure it. And then when you're having people at the front of the House chamber getting into the Senate chamber, that is definitely a failure of whatever precautions they put in place. We certainly need to look at the lessons learned from this incident to ensure that the safety of all of those at the Capitol complex, something like this can't ever happen again.
The U.S. Attorney is asking why weren't people detained. The question is, when we've seen riots since the spring, and it's about detaining individuals, why was there no SWAT team or other specialized units in front of the Capitol? There's now questions are being asked. Congress is saying they're going to look into it. But we have critics saying this isn't patriotism. This is terrorism. This is next level. What happened in the spring with the riots is terrible. The media and Democrats downplayed. They've been accused of downplaying riots that left billions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars in damage to property, small businesses, dozens of people killed. People are frustrated that happened. But this is next level. This is an attack on the U.S. government. That's something different. That's what critics are saying. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, this summer, we had resolutions on the floor condemning mob violence when we saw all these cities being attacked across the country, and Democrats refused to bring that resolution up. It was a simple resolution condemning the violence, condemning mob violence, and they refused to bring it up because it went against their political base, which is Antifa and Black Lives Matter. Now, all of a sudden, they want to condemn the violence, yet they want to also defund the police. So I'll be curious to see if you hear the progressive left talk about defunding the police after it was actually the Capitol Police that stood in between them and people getting into the Capitol. As I was walking up to the Capitol, as all of this started to unfold, they were bringing units to the front, which was the west side of the Capitol at the time, where they had already gotten through the barricade. So that tells you they didn't have enough manpower prior to people even getting there, which means to me they weren't fully prepared. They weren't allowing members to leave to go back to their offices. They weren't allowing us to leave the floor. They weren't allowing us to leave anywhere, which means we were all trapped there either in the House chamber or somewhere in the Capitol complex, which I also don't think is a wise choice when you have all of these tunnels. Members are safer in their offices. There's multiple doors that keep us in there. We have security measures, communication devices in our offices. You don't have that. And you certainly don't want 435 members of Congress all in one place when the walls get broken down.
Yeah. We're showing this footage of how it began. This video that you're seeing right now on camera is how it started. We also have this. We have conservative columnist Mark Thiessen former House Oversight Chair Trey Gowdy, saying it started when the president told supporters to go to the Capitol, tell Congress, do the right thing. You have to show strength. Senator Tom Cotton, Representative Dan Crenshaw, multiple individuals are condemning the president for that. We've got Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer is saying invoke the 25th Amendment, remove the president now. 7 officials resigning from the Trump administration, including Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao, first cabinet member to do that, wife of Senator Mitch McConnell. Congressman, I'd like you to listen to Senators Lindsey Graham, Rand Paul, Liz Cheney, and Rick Grinnell right now. Let's take a listen.
This heightened tension that everything's been stolen just, has led to this feeling that nobody believes there's any integrity anymore, and so they're just going to riot.
Trump and I, we've had a hell of a journey. I hate it being this way. Oh, my God, I hate it. From my point of view, he's been a consequential president. But today, first thing you'll see. All I can say is count me out. Enough is enough.
Well, I mean, look, I think what's important is to just recognize we just had a violent mob assault the U.S. Capitol in an attempt to prevent us from carrying out our constitutional duty. And there's no question that the president formed the mob.
Well, let's also start by saying we have to condemn this violence. It's a very sad day. We had the moral high ground by condemning all of the violence last summer and into the fall. And now we have to be very clear about condemning this violence.
Congressman, your reaction to that?
Yeah, we absolutely have to condemn the violence. I've condemned the violence that we saw with Antifa and Black Lives Matter. We need to do the same thing with this. As I've said, regardless of the organization, regardless of the group, regardless of the individuals, if they have broken crimes, they need to be held accountable. I was talking to an individual that was on the flight back with me to Sarasota today that partaked in the rally and said that there were Antifa individuals who were identified, who were part of the aggravators in this organization. He had said that there was a bus of them that were dropped off, and you could see them in some of the video in like tactical clothing, wearing tactical helmets. Those weren't part of the rally. Those were people that were dropped off to cause violence. And some reports say that these were individuals that were part of Antifa. So until we know all the investigation that comes from all these people that were involved in this, the people start getting arrested, I think we'll have more answers for the American people. But the bottom line is this type of thing cannot happen in America. It can't happen at the U.S. Capitol or anywhere in our country.
Yeah, it's the people's house. It's our house. People fought and died. You fought in wars for our democracy. And this shook people. They feel shaken. You know, the FBI is looking through security footage camera. They're doing facial recognition. They're getting cell phone footage. We are trying to track we are tracking the reports of whether Antifa was in there. We're trying to get the evidence of that. Neo-Nazis, white supremacists are in there too. Also, watch this footage of Capitol Hill police holding the door for the rioters. This is what Washington, D.C. U.S. Attorney Michael Sherman is talking about. Just, you know, letting them go out and not detaining them as they left the Capitol. Your final word on this?
Well, anybody that broke the crime should absolutely be detained. I think the challenge that they were having in detaining all these people is they didn't have the manpower to detain all these people because they were busy trying to protect all the people inside the Capitol.
And the president did sign an executive order, 10 years in federal prison. If you vandalize federal property, we're going to track to see if it's used evenly across the board with what happened in Washington and what happened with riots earlier in the year. We're seeing that people are now being charged with the earlier riots earlier in the year. Congressman Greg Steube, it's good to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.